Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and in the studio with me is Gayle Trotter. Her website, Gayle Trotter, Gayle Trotter, Trotter.com, and Republican strategist, journalist, and attorney. You can tweet her at Gayle Trotter, Gayle Trotter. Hey, Gayle, welcome back.
Great to be with you, Thom.
Thank you. I have been talking about the bundle of plutocrats, the cabinet of deplorables, shall we say, all these billionaires, Steve Mnuchin, who lives and makes a fortune throwing people out of their homes.
Are they irredeemable, too?
I think so, yeah. Wilbur Ross, who slashes jobs, cuts pensions, rolled back safety regulations at his companies, so people actually died. Elaine Chao, when she was Secretary of Labor, cut safety inspections and the mines, which led to one of the worst mining disasters in American history. People died. So, Jeff Sessions, Betsy DeVos, wants to private. So
do you like any of his picks?
No, I don't. And now Ben Carson. Ben Carson's the only one who's not a billionaire, I think, or a multimillionaire. Although he's probably quite wealthy by now. But so you're here
not Nancy Pelosi level wealthy.
I have no idea. So you're here to defend the in my opinion, indefensible. But one of the things that the indefensible here is all about. Paul Ryan over the weekend, and I think it was the Meet the Press, said, or was it Mike Pence? It was Mike Pence. We're going to have a real opportunity to gut health care for working poor people. He said, quote, there's a real opportunity as we repeal and replace Obamacare to do what the president-elect also said on the campaign, which is block granting Medicaid back to the states. First of all, the president never said that. In fact, he said the opposite of that. So now we've got the Republican Party twisting Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, I'm not going to mess with Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security.
He said he was going to protect him.
Yeah,
but there are different ways of protecting programs that are running into the red constantly.
This is not protecting. This is not protecting.
Well, it's a disagreement. But it's
then
not
also,
twisting
when George Stephanopoulos said, are you going to change Medicare? Mike Pence refused to say no.
Well, Obama started switching Medicare. I mean, part of Obamacare was a $700 billion cut to Medicare,
which extended the life. No, it wasn't a cut to Medicare. It was a transfer, and it extended the life of Medicare.
Cut.
No,
it's semantics.
It did not. No, it's not semantics. It is. You are lying, Gayle.
Lying.
I am.
You can say I'm wrong, but you can't say I'm
Donald
lying.
Trump constantly, so I'm going to start using it. The $700 billion that was changed in Medicare in Obamacare did not diminish any benefits to anybody.
That's not correct. That's not correct.
Obamacare. What, you saying I'm lying? And in fact, what Obamacare.
No, I didn't say that.
What Obamacare did is it extended the life of Medicare to the tune of $2 trillion. And again, Republicans are lying about this. But the question is, if you want to debate a larger issue or a question,
yes,
is what role should the government play in protecting poor seniors? In 1935, one of the leading causes of death among people over 65 was freezing to death in the winter and heat stroke in the summer. I mean, these are leading causes of death, and they were associated with poverty.
Right.
And Franklin Roosevelt said, okay, we got to do something about this.
Well, I think that's a great question, and we have different approaches on how we would solve that problem. But I think we both have to agree we have a $19 trillion debt right now. We have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And in 10 years, the entire amount of the federal revenue, the money that the government takes in from taxes, will be spent towards entitlement and interest payments on the debt. There won't be a penny to go towards the military, to education, to anything else that we want the government to spend.
This is all BS.
No, it's not BS.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Gayle, go back and look in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s. You will hear conservatives using these exact same numbers, predicting the demise of Social Security, predicting the national debt is going to wipe us out. Reagan ran on that in 1980.
Yes, and he gave us the 1986 Tax Reform Act,
which tripled the national debt.
That fueled our economic growth. And in the last 7 years, we've had $500 billion deficits the last 7 years. We have an anemic 2.1% average growth.
They were under George W. Bush. But I'm not worried about the national debt. Because your numbers are coming from these right-wing think tanks that are.
So what do you think the national debt is? You disagree with the debt number?
The national debt. Well, first of all, the $19 trillion, about $4 trillion of that is money that the government owes itself, right?
But
So
who
you
pays
can
that?
take that out.
Who pays that? The taxpayers.
No, the national debt
It's ultimately
is
owed by the
savings.
taxpayers.
It is private savings. If you know, maybe
private.
you know, it just occurred to me. Maybe you don't understand this. The reason why Wall Street, the reason why Pete Peterson and these other guys are funding these multi-decade campaigns to convince us that the national debt is something we should be hysterical about, is because
Not hysterical. Just to understand, we have to make choices,
every
right?
penny that is invested in treasuries or T-bills is an investment. Our national debt is private savings. The public debt is private savings. Do you understand this?
I understand
just
the point.
This,
no,
okay?
I understand the point you're trying to make.
Because I'm going to a second point.
I disagree. Okay, make your second point.
All right. So the private debt is public savings. So if the public right now, if I was a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and I wanted to take $100 million and put it someplace that's safe, what's the safest investment I can make in the United States right now?
Treasury.
Treasuries. Okay, right. But if we do away with the national debt, there are no treasuries for sale. So then who do I have to go to with my $100 million to store it?
To invest
I would
in
have
the country,
to give it to Chase.
into
I would have
real
to give it to Wells
estate,
Fargo.
into startups, into innovation, into enterprise, into infrastructure. There's so many other things.
No, I can do it.
That
If
money
I want to
could be
put it
put
at
into.
risk, I can do all those things right now. If I want to put it someplace where it's just absolutely safe, that has never ever defaulted. There is nothing.
Never has.
Federal
but
government
it
has
could.
never defaulted.
It could, because we are on a path to catastrophe.
We are a sovereign nation. We control our own currency. The debt that I'm concerned about.
Tell that to Greece. Tell that to the other
Greece
countries.
does not control their own sovereignty, their own currency. They made the horrible mistake of joining the European Union and the Eurozone and adopting the euro. If they hadn't adopted the euro,
I agree with
they
you
would be
on
in good shape. But my point is that the national debt, you know, that's why these banksters want to do away with the national debt. Because they would love to have that $19 trillion parked. Jamie Dimon would love to have that money that he can make money off of, right?
Well, and Americans would like that. They would like to have that money invested.
Americans would get screwed by that.
No,
I don't want to be putting my savings in Wells Fargo when that bank could go down.
I represent who cannot get access to credit right now because they want to start their own business. They want to hire employees, and they are just oppressed by all of these government regulations. And then back on this, the initial issue that you...
Regulations are ways to protect people. Right?
Protect them from
your buddies who want to poison the air, who want to poison the water, who want to increase their profits by doing so.
My buddies who want to poison the air?
The Republican Party is like their official position. Let's, you know, the Clean Air Act, what does it do? It reduces regulations to allow more pollution.
No, if you're talking about the regulations that the Obama administration has put in under the auspices of trying to help
talking about Dodd-Frank.
The environment. No, the environment. We could Dodd-Frank. We could spend it.
We have wandered off. Let's go back, and we're past time. Let's go back to what should the government be doing? And just in answer to your debt question, my concern, for what it's worth, and I encourage you to look this up, is the $54 trillion in private debt in the United States, both corporate and personal. That's a bomb waiting to explode. We've never seen debt levels since 1929 relative to GDP that high, number one. And number two, our annual $600 billion trade deficit. This is where I absolutely agree with Donald Trump and did throughout the campaign.
Something you're on the Trump train about.
Our trade policies have been insane ever since Richard Nixon first proposed them and Ronald Reagan put them into practice. We have gone totally nuts.
They need to be renegotiated. And Obama went the other direction from what you're saying.
But you know,
Obama administration.
Absolutely. I disagree with both the Republicans and the Democrats.
You're an independent thinker on this. I think that's a good thing.
I think I'm an old-fashioned Democrat on this, but that's neither here nor there. So that said, reacting to your attempts to derail the conversation from what should the government do? What should the government? Okay, I say Social Security. The government is not trying to skim money off the top. They're not like Wells Fargo that charges. My wife didn't even know that she had a 401k, right? Because a company we set up years ago set it up. We set it up with Wells Fargo.
Right, a prior employer.
Got a bill, which we happen to own, but what the hell? Got a bill for $150 for this year's fee.
Right.
Social Security doesn't charge me a fee. So Wells Fargo
think
does.
there are no transaction costs from the government running Social Security?
No,
seriously.
I think they're
no friction, no transaction costs.
And the average person who puts their money in a 401k at the age of 20, by the time they retire at 65, will have paid over $120,000 in fees to the banksters. That's why they want that. So if the government is doing this at a very low cost and it's totally reliable, why not go with it?
I'm astonished that you think it's at low cost, number one. And number two, I think if we're talking about whether or not the government should provide anything, yes, the government should provide a safety net. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are popular programs with Americans. So the problem is
Democrats did a good job with those. But Republicans want to eliminate
I would
all
disagree,
three.
but it's just like Francis Perkins, who was the head of the Department of Labor when Social Security was passed, that the thing is, once you get these things entrenched, it's very hard. Even though it has distortionary effects, it takes away people's choice. It's not something that's good for the financial status of the United States.
So then you're opposed to Social Security.
I think it was an ill-advised program to start. And it
would have
has
been better
become
just to let
entrenched.
all those older people die over the years.
So I think it's three things. You start with the individual. You want to empower individuals with opportunity. Our education system is a travesty. Number two, we want families to be healthy and strong, because beyond yourself, if you can't take care of yourself, you look to your family. Our country has made decisions on a federal level that make it difficult for families. Third, you look at charities, from Catholic hospitals, Catholic nursing homes, and you don't have a federal government policy that puts the Catholic Church, for example, in conflict with its very strongly felt conscience in order to provide social safety net programs to people who are in deep need. So you go to those
I get
three.
what you're saying, and if you're an upper middle class member of a Mormon, the Mormons are really good about this.
No, look at the Little Sisters of the Poor in D.C. They're not caring for the
they're not caring for everybody.
They can't care for everybody.
That's my point.
That is true. That is true. But the people that they're caring for, the federal government should not be working against them.
Your solution works for upper middle class white people who may have family members who can help them out, who live in neighborhoods
that is derogatory to people. By saying it's only upper class people, because you don't think that people who come from difficult neighborhoods don't rely on themselves and their families and their communities.
I'm not suggesting that. You're making a straw man argument.
So what'd you say?
It's nonsense.
Repeat what you said.
So
I misunderstood.
what I'm saying is that your arguments are perfect arguments for if the entire nation was white and upper middle class or even middle class, those arguments arguably would make sense.
Why?
But more than half of our nation is basically living in poverty.
And people who are given opportunities of education, like look at DC, where we are right now. They spend more, the city spends more per capita on student per pupil than most of the other school systems around the country.
What does this have to do with Social Security?
Because you want to talk about empowering the individual, empowering the family, empowering the mediating institutions, churches, synagogues that can provide to people. Empowering is a nonsense
word.
Okay, soup kitchens, providing health care for elderly people who are poor.
First of all, Washington, D.C. is paying what they're paying because it's this giant experiment where the Republicans in Congress said, let's try to privatize the schools in Washington, D.C.
Oh, the Republicans have failed in D.C. education because they have the control.
D.C. education was failing because the tax base wasn't here, because we have a tax base for education that goes back to Jim Crow, that is absolutely part of Jim Crow. I mean, the whole point was keep poor communities poor. Make sure that schools are paid for by local taxes.
You think the Republicans want to keep poor people poor?
It was the Democrats in the 1870s when this was or in the 1880s, and it set into place, and it was encouraged by both parties. Yeah, absolutely.
So you think the Democratic Party and the Republican Party want to keep people poor?
I think the Republican Party would I absolutely say this, Gayle, absolutely, sincerely, that the plutocrats in the Republican Party need there to be poverty in the United States. They need an enemy. They need to be able to say, we're better than them. They're all about them.
That's astonishing. I disagree.
Yeah. Well, you may disagree, but I see no evidence of the opposite. I hear a lot of words and a lot of platitudes and quack, quack, quack. Won't this work wonderfully? They tried it in Chile with Allende. They had to kill thousands of people just to enforce those policies when they privatized Social Security.
But you consider yourself a progressive, right?
I do, and we're out of time.
Do you think everything's working well?
Thom Hartmann Program.
Gayle Trotter, Republican strategist, journalist, attorney, GayleTrotter.com. You get the last word, Gayle, or you just got the last word, at Gayle Trotter. Thanks, Gayle.
Great to be with you, Thom.
Good talking with you, as always.